Yeah, case dismissed.
Oh man, how's everybody doing? How's everybody doing today?
Good. I've been looking forward to the show.
Oh yeah, sorry we're running a little bit late. I don't know how to use the this Craig bot. I was trying to stop it and then restart it to for the show, but I don't know how to use the commands. Hey, Dandelion, do you mind starting the event for me as well? It won't let me on my phone. Or can somebody start it for me?
I'll start it. I just started it. She's still in the gold VC. She'll be right up.
Guess we should just go ahead and get it started. Indio said he was gonna show up sometime soon, so I'm assuming we'll just see him pop in. Hey everybody, my name is Brad. I've got Redford Bear here with us. How's it going, Redford?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
We have a pretty dope show for you guys. It's about logical fallacies. We got some presenters. We got Dre's, Dandelion, and Indio. And like I said, Indio is going to show up, and we have a cameo from Karma as well. So I'm just going to start from the top of the list to the bottom. Atticus, I just want to say hello. Adam, how's it going, man? And CB, cut the shit.
What's
Elijah,
up? Hello.
and Batman and Jimsy. How you guys doing? What's going on, Glad? I don't know how to say your name. I'm Yahuda. Yeah, I have no idea. I probably bummed that up. I'm sorry. How's it going, JK, Jelly? How's it going, Karma, and KJ, and Master Chief, and Miguel? How's it going, Napalm?
What's going on?
Orion, Pwets, Resolve, Rookie.
What's up?
Sebu, and then Seb, Sons of Thunder, the Doc, Toasty Feet. Already mentioned some Redford Bear there, and Old Dude, Sonny, and Branch. Hope you guys are all doing well today.
Yeah, hey, thanks.
So,
You too, so thank you.
I have no idea what these guys are going to be talking about. I do know what they're talking about. They're talking about logical fallacies, but I have no idea what's on their list of things to talk about. So I just wanted to bring it up. In the live stream, most of the time, most of you guys are debating right versus wrong. This is a break from that. So I just want to make it aware that let's try not to judge these presenters' information against each other. Let's be open minded individually. Just absorb all their information with your own discernment. If you disagree with something they have to say, either keep it in the text chat or keep it to yourself. Let's try not to interrupt them. Everybody's free to mute whomever. Obviously, let's try to keep the normal live stream etiquette. So, with that being said, Redford Bear, you got anything to say?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah, just please don't interrupt when the speakers are talking, as they've put a lot of effort into preparing this for us. So we'll just be muting. No questions asked if you guys interrupt. And just save your questions till the end. We'll, after each person has presented, we can open up the floor to that. And you can also put your questions in the text chat, and we can read them at the end as well. And I think Indio's here. Maybe he can start the bot.
Yeah, I'm here. No, I'm not starting. I'm going last.
Oh, okay.
She said start the bot. That's what isn't that what you said?
Oh,
start
I
the
did
bot?
start the bot. I already did that.
Oh, okay.
I already did. Way ahead of you.
Oh, the bot's not there though, bro. We're just saying we can't see the bot. Is it?
Craig bot.
Greg bot, the recording thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not there.
I said it was. Hold on a second.
Oh, it was in there, and then it left, and I'm not sure.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
I'm not receiving any audio disconnecting. I wonder if someone deafened it. Hold on a second. I'm going to redo it. Yeah, it'll send you a DM like its status.
Fallacies, 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 fallacies. Who was that? Was that CV?
Yeah, that's Jesse Pinkman. Breaking Bad reference.
Man, so I was going to talk about my my favorite fallacy. The way I learned it was called the divine fallacy, but Drace has one up to me and told me that is basically wrong. Well, he didn't tell me it was wrong, but he sent me information for me to come to that conclusion on my own that it's wrong. I can't figure out what it's really called, but the fallacy is just because you believe something is true doesn't mean it's true. I was just searching through Google. I was searching through Google's fallacy means, and I just saw it come up just like one of his red card means. And I kind of just took it from there, kind of like the meme with Abraham Lincoln saying that everything you see on the internet is true. Yeah, I was shown up by Dre's. Maybe Drace can tell me what that fallacy is actually called. I'm not too sure. Drace, do you have anything?
Yeah, it's argument from incredulity or argument from personal astonishment. It has many names. Argument from personal incredulity or personal incredulity. It's also called some places online the divine fallacy. So I think that's fine.
Yeah, but when I went to go back and like actually research it for myself after you told me, I couldn't find anything to validate the divine fallacy of what I thought it was. So that's why I kind of just was like, all right, well, I guess Drace is correct. So
I thought I read it somewhere online as well. So maybe they change stuff online all the time. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's tons of lists too. It's almost information overload. Bradford Bear, do you have a favorite fallacy?
Yeah, actually, it's from the list that Drace had put together when he went over the fallacies for us in a silver meeting. So I'm going to pick this one. It's called an ad nauseum. So refer to the fact that something has been done or repeated so often that it has become sickening or excessive.
Oh.
So that's an interesting one. I'll maybe have to start using that, calling people out on that one.
It's also called appeal to repetition.
Oh, okay. Multiple names. I like the ad nauseum. I like that. I like that name.
The ad nauseum. Well, Drace, on that note, do you want to go ahead and kick it off?
Argument by nagging. That's another one.
Argument by nagging.
Yeah. Would you just keep repeating the same thing that something is true without giving any further evidence for it? Like X is true, X is true, X is true, X is true. Mm-hmm. And you just keep saying it and that's your argument?
I put 2 examples in the live stream voice text on the logical fallacy page that Drace and I have been working on in our Flat Earth wiki there.
Well, before we kick it off, does anybody have any questions, comments? Anybody have any concerns they want to bring up? No?
So far, so good.
Yeah, I want to bring up, you just mentioned things changing on the internet. Well, Drace just mentioned it. So one that was changed, I don't know, maybe about 8 years ago, 10 years ago, was an appeal to authority argument. It used to just say it was a logical fallacy, but a lot of the definitions of it now have this little caveat that says something like, unless it's an expert in the field, right? Which is actually pretty ridiculous, right? So it's not proof of a fact because an expert says it, right? That's silly. If it's an expert in the field that's saying it, then the evidence that they're relying on should be the proof of the fact, not the fact that they said it. So you got to watch out for this changing of definitions, especially the appeal to authority, because who really does that help?
But that kind of makes anything. But that kind of makes it mean both. You know, like the appeal to authority is an appeal to authority unless it's an authority on the subject. What? You know, like
Yeah.
that defeats the whole purpose.
The problem here is they're conflating appeal to false authority and appealing to authority. Appeal to false authority is just like saying, "My mom said this, and therefore it's true." Your mom is not an authority on the subject; she's just a false authority, and you're just making her up to be an authority. Whereas appealing to authority is saying like, "Oh, he's an expert in this, therefore it must be true." Even though he has no evidence for it, he's just saying it. It has no relation to it being true.
Yeah, and another example would be an appeal to a false authority. I think, or maybe a derivative of it is when somebody says, "Dude, cars had, a Toyota has a 357 engine. I know because my dad's a mechanic." Things like that. When people like appeal to some relative or acquaintance, they have some expertise. Therefore, they themselves have the same expertise, and what they say is true. That's silly stuff. I've actually dealt with that nonsense my whole life. People saying that. I have a particular friend who thinks he knows everything about cars because his father's a mechanic. So
That's funny because my father was also a mechanic for a while, and I know nothing about cars.
there you go.
I am a Discord mod, therefore I know everything about Discord.
You only need to know where the important button is. Leave server. No.
Oh, I thought the ban button was the important one.
Yeah, that is. Someone's leaving the server. Me, myself, and I or them.
The shitty part about leaving the server is, once you leave,
Leaving
you come back, it starts your counter all over.
Oh yeah, Brad. Oh, you messed up.
Yeah. Instead of being like, I think I was like 12,000 something, I'm right back down to like 25,000. It's no big deal. But
it is disappointing, I know, because I joined day one, and then when I left the server and came back, now it looks like I joined in November 2020. But you know what? We all know the truth.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the important people know the truth. That's what's, good way to look at it. But on that note, Drace, man, go ahead and kick it off for us. What you got for us?
Okay, so I wrote you a little presentation and I collected some materials together. I will stop from time to time to give you a chance to ask any questions if you have any. But I will essentially cover two informal fallacies, the non sequitur and the begging the question fallacies, two formal fallacies, the denying the antecedent and affirming the consequent fallacies, and two logical proofs, the modus tollens and the modus ponens. But I will start with the basics and defining some terms to avoid confusion. I will also briefly mention the fallacy and the fallacy variation at the end of this presentation, so that will round everything up. I recorded it, so it will take about 15 minutes to do this. Do you have any questions before I begin?
No, man, I don't have any questions. Red Bear, do you got any questions for him?
No, I don't have any questions. Take it away.
Okay.
Thanks, Trace.
Moving on. Fallacies, the basics. Most of you probably already know this, but a quick overview for people new to this. A fallacy is a defect in an argument that involves mistaken reasoning. Sometimes fallacies are committed purposefully to influence or mislead the reader or listener, and sometimes unconsciously, as an ego defense mechanism. There are two main types of fallacies, the formal and informal. Formal fallacies happen when there's a problem with how someone structures his argument and how he's making his points. He might be speaking the truth, but the logic breaks down because of the way he's putting his argument together. A formal fallacy is one that can be detected by examining the form of the argument. It is an argument with a premise and a conclusion that does not hold up to scrutiny. Any questions?
None so far, man. Anybody got any questions for him?
I'll take silence as a no. Unlike formal fallacies, which are identified through examining the structure of the argument, informal fallacies are identified through the analysis of the content of the premises. In this group of fallacies, the premises fail to provide adequate reasons for believing the truth of the conclusion. There are numerous different types of informal fallacies, but I will only mention 4 here. To help clarify a little the terminology used in logic for people who are not used to it, I will define 2 words that get used a lot in logic: antecedent and consequent. An antecedent is the first half of a hypothetical proposition, whenever the if clause precedes the then clause. A consequent is the second half of a hypothetical proposition, the then clause following the if clause. And I will post these. Since these are important to keep in mind, since these words get used in quick succession and unfamiliarity with them can make the logic sound confusing. To start with, I think I will go with the most common or the simple formal fallacy. This is badly written. Or the simple informal fallacy, the good old non sequitur. It is present within most fallacious argumentation, so it's a great start. It literally means it does not follow. It means there's a divide between the premise and the conclusion. A non sequitur is all about making a giant logical leap that is totally unreasonable. Non sequiturs can also just be assumptions that are not necessarily true. All the following statements still take that giant leap which defies basic reason. Marilyn drives a Mercedes. Marilyn must be wealthy. She might be, she might not be. His apartment building is huge. His apartment must also be huge. It could be many small apartments within a huge building. You don't know. Billy is eating broccoli. Billy must love eating vegetables. Must he? What if you asked him and he told you he hates it, but he only eats it because Mom wants him to eat his greens? NASA has pictures. The Earth must be a globe. When they say anything followed by the Earth is a globe, it generally is a non sequitur. It doesn't actually follow. It's just a matter of finding that disconnect and pointing at it. So simply learning this single fallacy, and you can stop over 95% of what the globers use, because logically it does not follow and requires some assumptions or faith. And do you have any questions about this fallacy or any comments? Moving on. Now, because how closely related the other fallacies I want to cover are, and how it gets weaved together with them, I feel it's important to mention this informal fallacy, or the begging the question fallacy. It is probably my favorite fallacy, since it is very common for the globers to use, and it is any form of argument where the conclusion is assumed in one of the premises. Begging the question is a form of circular reasoning. The fallacy of begging the question occurs when an argument's premise assumes the truth of the conclusion instead of supporting it. In other words, you assume without proof the stand position or significant part of the stand that is in question. Begging the question is also called arguing in a circle. For example, gravity is proven by experiment. I learned in school that Cavendish is an experiment, therefore gravity is proven by experiment. This assumes schools taught you the truth, then using that assumption as proof while not understanding what defines an experiment, and how Cavendish does not qualify to be one, regardless of how many people believe it to be an experiment. Here's another example. If the Earth is a globe, there would be thousands of scientists saying it isn't. There are not thousands of scientists saying it isn't. Therefore, the Earth is a globe. Whenever they start with if, like if the Earth is a globe, or they assume an aspect of the globe to try to justify the globe, it is very likely a begging the question fallacy. As long as they end with a conclusion of any of their premises without having any valid logical format of either modus ponens or modus tollens mentioned later, they automatically are begging the question. The savvy among you probably noticed the previous example was also a different fallacy, and that is the fallacy we will talk about next. Anyone care to point at it?
What was the example you gave again?
I'll read it again. If the Earth is a globe, there would be thousands of scientists saying it isn't. There are not thousands of scientists saying it isn't. Therefore, the Earth is a globe.
Argument silence.
That's actually a very good, astute observation, because that fallacy is also hidden in there, but that was not the fallacy I was talking about. Good job.
Appeal to consensus.
I can see that being in there a little bit woven in it, but no. Before we delve deeper into the formal fallacies, I want to mention
Appeal to the majority.
That's also woven in there, but that's not what I was talking about. I want to mention deductive reasoning or logical proofs, known as modus ponens or modus tollens, since the fallacies I will cover next are invalid or defective forms of those valid arguments. And that's essentially what that was. So let's start with the simple modus ponens. This argument form has one premise that is hypothetical if-then statement, and another premise that affirms the antecedent of the hypothetical premise. In the conclusion, then, it claims the truth of the consequent. In symbolic form, modus ponens looks like this. If P, then Q, P, therefore Q. Lumen Learning Logic course made a non sequitur trying to formulate a modus ponens argument, showing how hard it is to be logical. And I will post that little example here. While formulated correctly as a modus ponens, if we get up before sunrise, then we have time for a run does not follow necessarily, emergency or other reasons, and therefore makes a leap in logic, showcasing our first fallacy, the non sequitur. Here is a less fallacious example of a modus ponens argument. Premise 1. If something is more dense than the medium it is in, if P, then it falls, then Q. Premise 2. Something is more dense than the medium it is in, P. Therefore it falls, therefore Q. Next we will go over the fallacy mentioned before, and that is the defective version of modus ponens. And that's how I phrased that earlier example. It's called affirming the consequent. Recall that in one of the premises in modus ponens, affirming the antecedent, which is essentially what modus ponens is, it's affirming the antecedent of the hypothetical premise, the antecedent necessitates the consequent. That's the important bit. If it doesn't necessitate the consequent, it doesn't work. If the antecedent does not necessitate the consequent, it's a non sequitur fallacy. In the fallacious examples I will present next, however, the consequent is affirmed instead of the antecedent like this. If Earth is a sphere, if A, then we see boats disappear bottom up, then B. We see boats disappear bottom up, B, therefore the Earth is a sphere, therefore A. The antecedent is claimed to be true because the consequent is true. But that does not mean it is. That was never confirmed. It was just the consequent that was affirmed. So we can't affirm the consequent to prove the antecedent. Does that make sense?
Yep, taking notes.
Here's one more example of this fallacy. If the Earth is a sphere, if A, then we would see shadows like Aristophanes saw, then B. We saw shadows like Aristophanes saw, B, therefore the Earth is a sphere, therefore A. This argument assumes the truth of the conclusion, so there's also the begging the question and non sequitur fallacies hidden within this, but this form is specifically denying the antecedent, so it's illogical in the form as well. These arguments are highly logical and can be dismantled via understanding any of these fallacies or the correct logical argument structure, which they're trying to do but failing at. So onto our second logical argument, or modus tollens, a favorite of ours because we use it a lot with the black swan. This argument form also has one premise that is a hypothetical if-then statement, and then another premise that denies or indicates the untruth of the consequent, or of the hypothetical premise. The conclusion then claims that the antecedent is not the case, that is, denies it. In symbolic form, modus tollens looks like this. If P, then Q, not Q, therefore P. And I will give you an example of that as well. We are all familiar with the black swan, so I will go over this very quickly, and with new examples I made just for this. Starting with this fact: Taylor columns form in rotated fluids. If Earth is rotating the fluid air, if P, then Taylor columns would form in all fluids on Earth, then Q. Taylor columns don't form in all fluids on Earth, not Q. Therefore, the Earth is not rotating the fluid air, therefore not P. This next one I was not sure about until I read more about it from different sources. I wonder if you guys will have similar issues, so I will ask you a question after this. If imagined gravity can prevent greater gas pressure from equalizing with less pressure, if P, then we would not be able to exhale while upright against the imagined vector of gravity, then Q. We are able to exhale while upright against the imagined vector of gravity, not Q. Therefore, imagined gravity cannot prevent gas pressure from equalizing with less pressure, therefore not P. And I will give you a moment now to see if you see my issue when I was trying to make this.
Can you repeat that, Drace?
No problem. I'll post it so it's easier. And there we go. To give you an example, what bugged me was I used a negative in the then Q, and then I denied the negative with a positive in not Q. And that in the beginning I didn't understand how that worked until I further read more logic courses and found different examples showing it. To help clarify the context, not Q simply means the denial of Q. So using a negative claim and denying it using a positive claim feels very counterintuitive, but I have more examples of this to follow. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I'm still following.
Yeah, it's basically saying, if the gravity was acting equally, then it would be acting equally on us, and then, we wouldn't be able to exhale. Yeah, I like it. You came up with that yourself?
Yeah. Just while making this.
Cool.
The more you know, the more you can do. Next off, I'm almost done, by the way. Next is denying the antecedent. This fallacy can be seen as a defective or invalid use of the modus tollens argument. Recall that in one of the premises of the modus tollens, it denies the consequent of the hypothetical premise. In the fallacious example to follow, however, the antecedent is denied instead of the consequent. Premise 1, if I'm cleaning the kitchen, then I'm not reading my book. Premise 2, if I'm not cleaning the kitchen, the denial of cleaning is not cleaning. Conclusion, thus I'm reading my book, and the denial of not reading is reading. So there it gives you an example of how a negative claim is then denied with a positive claim. The premise here is valid. It's not a non sequitur, but this too is defective reasoning if you think about it. Not being engaged in kitchen cleaning does not by necessity infer that I am reading. I could be doing anything besides cleaning the kitchen. I also have this fallacy as used by Globers. If we would see forever, if P, the Earth would be flat, then Q. We don't see forever, not P. Therefore, the Earth is not flat, therefore not Q. This is a logical leap here between the antecedent and the consequent, so a non sequitur. We can also easily show how you would not see forever through a medium like air, so this is invalid and defective just on the face of it. And in the content and in the form. But then denying the antecedent. Generally, when they try to confirm the globe, they affirm the consequent. And when they want to deny the flat Earth, they use the denying the antecedent. And that's why I felt it was important to bring these up, because these are the things that they think are the most logical, and they think they're being logical, but they're just failing at using logic. Does that make any sense? I only have closing statements after this.
Are you able to post that last flat Earth example in the text?
The if they would see forever one?
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Trace.
And my closing words would be, the movies teach them these fallacies and more as logical deductive reasoning, so people use them unconsciously thinking they're being logical. I would class them as level 0 in logic because they don't know any logic. A level 1 hears at least the irrationality, but he can't name the logical fallacies being used, but he at least knows it's wrong. Level 2 can name the fallacies, but struggles to help others understand how they're being fallacious. They can be like, oh, that's a fallacy. It's this fallacy, but I can't really help you understand how you're being fallacious. And I would say level 3 uses the weaknesses of their fallacious argumentation to show others how it is fallacious and doesn't work. And that's, I think, the level we all want to be at. And some here are at that. I'm not at that level yet. I'm like level 2, crawling my way to level 3 by learning this stuff. Application is far harder than the book learning. And so this goes into the 2 last fallacies I want to mention in the end, because knowing the name alone of a fallacy can create an issue with the fallacy variation, where the fallacies are called out but not shown. And it's important to not fall into the trap of the fallacy, where you assume whatever is argued for is wrong because they argue with a fallacy. However, they should attempt to reformulate an argument without a fallacy, since that specific argument can't be dismissed on the ground of being fallacious, regardless if they are arguing for the truth. This is the end of my presentation, so I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Well done, Drace.
That was
For real,
awesome.
Drace. Yes, agreed.
I'll have to go back and study it and take notes, and yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of awesome information, though. I'm going to have to do that as well.
Drace, you're all over it, buddy. Thanks for doing all that work. And also, is there a section where Drace can just kind of have all this stuff to? And Drace, have you posted this anywhere else on the server? I guess.
Yeah, it's on our wiki.
It's on the wiki. Okay. What I mean is a channel within this specific Discord server. You know, like down the additional information, stuff like that. Is there a spot there where you can just label it,
Hashtag
fallacy fiasco or whatever? Yeah. Logical fallacies, yeah, something like that. Is that a good idea or what?
I mean, the easiest way to do it is exactly what he just said. I mean, he posted the wiki.
Cool. Okay. Word.
Yeah, yeah. We do have a page down there for fallacies. I'm not sure if it's specifically like labeled as fallacies for people to find it. But yeah, it's pretty much just information copied and pasted from the wiki page and other fallacy web pages online.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
What I would like is screenshots of Globers using every single type of fallacy from within here. I keep forgetting to do that, so anybody else who also could take those pictures and screenshot those is a valuable contribution.
Yeah, I can see the benefit in that.
Yeah, great idea, because we got some examples there on the fallacy page, but there's so many more we haven't even added. Like in the discussion tab on that Logical Fallacies page, there's some that I want to add that we don't have examples of yet. And so, yeah, and we can even add more examples to the examples we've already got there, because some of the examples are just ones that we made up, but I have a few screenshots there of examples. But it would be great to have more screenshots for sure.
Yeah, and the more you have, the more we just put into that individual fallacy page, and you can see all the different Globers saying all this dumb stuff.
Oh, we've got, a bunch of fallacies in the lobby right now, because all of us are busy, and they're taking advantage of it here.
Oh, no.
Did you see them? I don't know if anybody's got time to go up there and check them out. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any more questions, concerns for Drace? Redford Bear, do you have anything? You have any input?
No, that was really, really good. That was very fast. You went through all that very quickly. But that was awesome information. Thank you so much for putting that all together. I'm definitely gonna re-listen to that and make some notes, because I think that, Drace, what you said, that's kind of my issue too. You know, I listen to people talk about the fallacies. I've heard you just talk about them, but it's hard to apply them, like when you're in that moment, right? So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, that's definitely a big shift from being able to apply the knowledge of the fallacies and the weaknesses of that specific fallacy to show him how his argument is wrong, and just feeling or knowing which specific fallacy he's using. There's a big gap between there. That's why I really like Elijah and Crypto and Indio, because they're good at doing that. They're at that level where they can they grasp the weakness of that argumentation and just present it to them in a simile or a different way of looking at it, so that they can realize that they're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And Karma did put in the text chat that we could make a game for it to practice identifying a fallacy. I don't think that that's a bad idea. I think that that's a pretty good suggestion.
I mean, we should talk to Matrix about incorporating Globe and Fallacy Bingo together. That'd be hilarious. And just play it through the lobby. They used to do that a lot. I don't know why they don't do it anymore. Maybe they got bored of it.
Yeah, I remember somebody paying about the Globe Bingo once, but I wasn't around, so I'm not even sure how that all works. But yeah.
Globe Bingo is fun.
Yeah. Well, let's get the games going again, you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, Dries, that was fantastic. I don't think I have any questions. Does anybody else have any questions for Dries before we move on?
We could turn these into slides, like a presentation slide, so we could have it access to it while we're having a conversation. Pull it up, and that we just have that as a reference. So I like that idea. I may just go ahead and make presentation slides with all of that you presented today. But I would like to see this as an ongoing series, and it kind of sounds like that's where you're headed. Dries.
Well, oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, even just for the break time, too, because there is like Crypto and Elijah as well, we can see if they would like to join us one time and we can continue with the fallacies as well. But, Sunny, I think Dries had a bunch of slides already. Dries, do you have?
Does.
Yeah.
It's probably what he's talking about. It's probably already in the wiki.
Yeah, I made what you just heard was Logic 102. I made Logic 101 after that, just to add to it.
Oh, out of the frying pan into the fire for us then, huh?
Everybody's cool with moving on to Miss Dandelion?
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Dandelion, go ahead and take the floor.
Okay, yeah, Brad asked me to give just a general introduction about why logical fallacies are important. So before I go on to my main thing, which is basically about education, I'm actually just going to read what is the intro at the Logical Fallacies wiki page, which hopefully will give you a general overview. But I think what me and Karma are going to talk about will also kind of address that, because Karma is going to chime in with her experience with young people and so on, because she works with young people. So anyway, why are fallacies important in examining the globe claim? One of the reasons that an unverifiable globe model with impossible dimensions has been able to be perpetuated for so long is that there is a serious lack of training in systematic logic. At one time, formal training in logic was an accepted and important part of classical education. And I'll just add here, like you've heard about the trivium, logic, grammar, and rhetoric, that used to be like just the basics of education. Now they're like almost nowhere to be found, especially the logic part. It should surprise no one familiar with current world affairs that it is advantageous for those hoarding power and resources to keep the masses uneducated and their minds untrained. By learning about and pointing out the errors in logic known as logical fallacies when they occur, we can retrain our mind to think more logically and clearly about the nature of our world and other important issues. So yeah, I think, when I came to the server, I was impressed that people were talking about logical fallacies, proofs, these kind of arguments, because, for example, the way geometry used to be taught in school was you would see these kind of argument formations, if P then Q, all of those all over the place, especially if you took like a higher level mathematical proofs course and so on. But even in math, they've gotten away from, training children how to use these rules of logic, which are just basic ways to draw conclusions that so many people, as Grace mentioned, are just completely unfamiliar with. So and that's basically the main theme of what I wanted to talk about with karma, is the importance of, and our kind of part of our presentation is about, oh my gosh, who put that book up there? Drace, I love that book. I have that book at my house. I was about to go find the screenshot of that book, and then you put it up there. This is so great. What a great synchronicity. The Trivium, the Liberal Arts of Logic, Grammar, and Rhetoric. That's a really good book. Highly recommended. Anyway, so what I was saying was, yes, youth. Yes, that we are going to discuss how basically, how children develop, how when different types of learning should be introduced at different stages, because modern education has really messed this up. They introduce abstract concepts way too early, such as the globe, such as evolution, such as the atomic model, and so on. At a time when children are at the concrete level and at the just exploring their concrete, physical realm level. And so that's why they mess these children up so badly. So that's why we get these adult children in here that are like unable to reason their way out of a cardboard box, because their brain's been like literally, completely screwed up with the wiring. But the good news is it's not too late. Even if ideally you'd want to get, a young child and start kind of training them up as in the way they should go. But adult children, you can always go back to any stage that you've missed and kind of retrain your brain. It's never too late for any of us to go back and kind of figure out those gaps in our education and retrain ourselves, as long as we have the motivation to do so. So I'm only saying that as a preview, just so nobody's like going to sit here and be depressed, like, oh my gosh, I've messed up my children, or I'm totally messed up, it's all over for me. That's not supposed to be the point of the presentation. So, Karma, did you have anything to say just on that general note?
No, I think that's a really good introduction.
Okay, cool. All right, so, Okay, so the first, actually, you know what? I'm just going to give you the outline to the things I was going to say, because I might not actually cover every single one of these points, because you guys might start falling asleep if I got into all the intricacies of Piaget and Waldorf and all that. So you can always go and research those things if you're interested. But if you ever go to education school, they are all about Piaget. And then apparently once you actually get a job, you're supposed to just throw Piaget out the door and just do whatever the hell the government tells you to do and forget everything you learned about how children actually grow and learn. So Piaget teaches about the 4 stages, and I'll just put these I'll put actually this whole section into the voice text there, so you can see what I'm talking about. Piaget, and all of these are they're just general guidelines that, he found from doing tons of interviews with children, I think thousands or something. He found, you just kind of generally grouped children into these phases, same with the Waldorf stages. Obviously, that doesn't mean on the 7th birthday, the child suddenly, changes and becomes something else. These are just general things, and some children are ahead, some are behind, and so on. So anyway, Piaget's stages there. The sensory motor stage is ages 0 to 2. Pre-operational 2 to 7, concrete operational 7 to 11, formal operational 12 and up. So in terms of teaching formal logic to children, technically the best time to introduce that is starting at age 12. But you can start, what I found, experimenting with my own children, is you can start in depending on the child in section 3 there, concrete operational, but the thing that you can see just from looking at the names of those, even without knowing all the details about all of them, up to age 11, it's concrete. It's they're messing around with stuff. They're figuring out how things work. They're really interested in their world and curious if you let them be. Spend a lot of time outside, manipulating things and so on. That's how they learn best. They don't learn best if you give them this abstract concept of the globe and tell them, oh, it feels like the earth is flat and stationary, but you're totally wrong. Your experience is wrong. Actually, you're on this spinning globe. So anyway, it's not only unfortunate that they're giving them the wrong information, but even if that was the right information, let's pretend it's true, right? That's not a good time to introduce that, that your reality is completely wrong and everything you experience is wrong. If that were even true, I'd still say, don't even talk to them about that until they're older. It's a ridiculous thing they shouldn't even have to worry about. They should be going around learning about what's actually in their world where they live. And since we know it's false, that makes it even worse. And so then, anyway, the Waldorf stages, which I actually like better, that's more the kind of thing I'm using. Like Piaget is kind of the formal educational thing, like I said, that they teach people and then they never use it again after they leave education school. Waldorf, Rudolf Steiner, who was aware of the Earth's true cosmology. I have a Rudolf Steiner quote here somewhere. I got to try to find it for you guys. It's a really good quote. Anyway, he questioned the heliocentric model. I know Adam Unsalted, sometimes will put quotes in here from Rudolf Steiner. I'll just give you a link to the Rudolf Steiner page on the plaintruth.info. Anyway, he developed the Waldorf philosophy of education, and he divided children into 3 stages: will, ages 0 to 7; feeling, ages 7 to 14; thinking, ages 14 to 21. So again, they were not even gonna even get into thinking that hard until we're 14, and now you got them shoving these kids full of stuff, book knowledge and all this stuff that they're nowhere near ready to deal with, and calling that education, when all of their early education should be way more experiential, which is, if you're lucky enough to either have a Waldorf school, around you. They're very expensive, though. I've never actually sent my children to Waldorf school, but there's a lot of Waldorf homeschooling stuff you can do, or even if your children are in a regular school, you can always do it at home, as a supplemental thing, because they have a ton of really good, natural toys and just, cool books and music and stuff like that. So I think the Waldorf education is really good. So, anywho, Karma, did you have anything to say there about the stages?
Well, I guess maybe just that I totally agree that you should teach it at a proper age, but you should always role model good logic from a young age, even if you're not, teaching them properly yet. Because knowing how to use logic at any age with kids, it's going to help them with their self-control and social skills. So, because it always spreads out from itself.
I totally agree. Yes, and even though, you might not necessarily at a young age, and that's the part we can talk about a little more in the next section. Even if you're not at a young age, sitting there and making them watch Drace's presentation and teaching them to identify the formal names of fallacies, you're still doing things that develop the logic that will come later. For example, we all know, if you want to use the scientific method, which is a very reasonable, logical, deductive method, you have to make a natural observation first, which is where tons of people can't even seem to do step 1, make a natural observation. But that's basically all that children are doing, their whole first part of their life. Anyone who's been around any children ever knows that's true. So, and that's what this first resource recommendation I have, which is for young people, Keo and Gus. That's from the Philosophy Children series by Matthew Lipman. I remember using this with my children when they were in first, second grade, that kind of thing. And they're basically just stories, and then you kind of just ask questions about the stories. It's just a very low level. It's not identifying fallacies or anything, but it's just encouraging children kind of to make observations. Yeah, absolutely. Tracy says natural observations are what children do. According to the Globers, the toddlers are doing science. Yep, you gotcha. You betcha. Sometimes they're doing it better than some of these college students we get in here. So, anyway, those are my recommendations for teaching logic from 0 to 7 is mostly informal training. Allow the child to experience the world on their own terms. Answer their questions as best you can, or research them together at their level, preferably with hard copy books, because they like to touch and feel. Ask them questions about their experiences and accept their answers as valid, presenting alternatives as needed. Okay, so then that's where you're kind of like starting to introduce them the idea of hypothesizing, making your natural observation and then hypothesizing about it. You might know the hypothesis is wrong, right? Like, why is the sky blue? Oh, because God painted it blue or whatever. You don't have to be like, no way, it's not because God painted it. Let me explain to you. You can say, oh, yeah, that's a really interesting idea, and let's, talk about this some more, maybe look at these books. You can, accept that their hypothesis has some validity and, possibility, whatever it is, without having to, sit there and tell them, you're absolutely wrong. Science has shown we live on a globe, that kind of thing. Watch the clouds together, feel the stillness and solidity of the earth while lying on the ground. I think this is a great exercise just in general to kind of get people grounded in reality. Any age. If I had Zanuck here, I'd take him out to the field and we'd be looking at the clouds and we'd just say, Zanuck, you feel any emotion? And would Zanuck lie to me? Hard to say. Number 4, use natural materials as much as possible. Oh, somebody hasn't answered that question. It was rhetorical, but if you have got an answer of whether Zanuck would lie, I totally want to hear it. Zanuck here still? No, that's good. Thanks.
Probably.
I want to talk to him. He said probably. Okay. Yeah, I totally feel the movement, Mary Mom. Don't you?
I feel it so hard right now. Something like that.
Okay, so number 5, encourage imaginative play. Number 6, begin to introduce musical instruments, starting with drum, endo recorder, or pentatonic flute, lap harp. So Waldorf is really into the pentatonic scale in introducing music, and they have tons of very cool songs. They encourage singing songs about things you're doing. When you have cleanup, you have a cleanup song. Which doing cleanup songs, that's kind of a thing that they do a lot in early education, which I love. Do you have a cleanup song at the place where you work, Karma?
I actually just always make songs for everything without having heard of this. Like when I'm getting a kid to send home, I'll be singing their name. I'd be like, if your mom is here, I'd be like, Dandelion, the coolest and greatest. Your mom is here to pick you up, and I'll power slide into the room.
Oh my goodness! I totally. You're trying to recruit me to move to Iceland so I can put my children in your school, aren't you? That's what you're doing here.
Maybe a little bit.
That sounds great. That's the kind of thing I do too. Yeah. Okay, so where were we? Encourage singing. This kind of goes with number 6 and what we just said. Learn songs using the pentatonic scale to start. So anywho, there's I have this one. This is not the songbook that I have. But I was going to recommend this one because it looks good, but I don't have it. So later I'll just take a picture of it and find it. But so did you have any other comments about that section, Karma, about 0 to 7? Is that what ages are you working with?
I usually have 6 to 10, but I also had a nephew grow up here from birth until 5, 6 years old. So that's the age I'm most comfortable with, I would say. Although I always have 11 and 12-year-olds coming back to chat.
Cool.
But yeah, on what you were saying about songs and play and stuff like that, you can use story times and jokes and play and stuff like that to explain logic as well by using examples, by just using it in the play. I often have where we're playing, you're maybe using Action Man, you can just be like, the guy is doing something, you're like, but what about this? We have to think about the logic of, if he's doing this, he needs to be there, so he has to come over here first. What about the time between? And they're like, yes. Okay, and in the time doing this, you just help them along a little bit within the game.
Absolutely. Yep. And so I think that's the important thing, that people, with their own children or children, that are their relatives or friends, can always be doing these things without necessarily. I mean, that's the common question we get in here, isn't it? Do you teach your children about the flat earth? It's well, yeah, whatever. I mean, we've said 100 times, that takes 5 minutes to explain when you have someone who knows how to use reason and logic. The more important thing is to have a child who is actually able to observe and make determinations about the actual world where they live, and realize the difference between fantasy and reality, and that what's on their TV screen is not necessarily reality. I mean, that's just another example. Yeah, I do with my children, because I don't like them being traumatized by violent images on the TV, which I try to reduce them in general, especially for the young ones. But if they happen to be there and there's some kind of violent image, I will often say to them, yeah, well, that, those, because they look shocked. They're like, if you notice, especially children that haven't been desensitized to it yet, I'm like, oh yeah, those are just actors. They're playing a part. Those people are alive and well today. They're just using props and so on, because there's no reason for them to be traumatized by events like that. What was the example you used on Ladies' Night about, do you remember the example you told us? Was that last Ladies' Night? Told us the example from school?
I think it was the one before. And are you talking about the 11-year-old who came to chat to me about NASA and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because we
to tell us that story.
Oh yeah, the thing about this, I also want to mention, we have a thing that we call teachable moments at work, where whenever you catch the kids having a conversation or talking about something, and I do this with lodging and all kinds of things like that, you grab the moment to just chat with them, ask them questions, or teach them something through play. That's what we call teachable moments. And it's all about just grabbing that throughout the day. You don't have to create them, you can catch them. But yeah, the other thing was, that kid was a freaking genius. He was interested in World War II and the British royalty. And I would sneak to him small little truther stuff, beginner truther stuff that he would check out. So he started to get interested. And then when it came to NASA and stuff, I would be fairly honest, but not say too much. And then I'd be like, well, I don't believe that NASA is telling the truth because it looks pretty fake. It's very badly done. And I think they're just getting a bunch of money without doing what they say they're doing. So I think they're just what we call a peningaplockare, somebody who steals money without anybody knowing. It's greedy man. It's a word. But then later on, he's like a year older, and he comes walking past when I'm in outside play, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I wanted to talk to you. I was watching the NASA thing, and the moon landing thing is definitely fake." And he was talking about how he watched a bunch of stuff, and his grandma is 6 years old, but she's been working in this pool thing for like 20, 30 years. And she said that the pool they're using isn't even deep enough for competitive use. And then he said he was watching something to do with like launch to Mars and stuff. And he was just like, this is so fake. It was absolutely adorable. But got a little truther growing there.
That is cool. Yeah, that actually made me think of a thing that happened with my, he's 10 now, but when I joined the server, I bet he was only like 7 or 8. And, yeah, Brad and Redford, tell us if we're taking too much time, because me and Karma could probably just have a tea party here and talk all day long. I think we're only on like section 1, but anyway.
Why does there need to be a time limit?
Okay, I didn't know if there was.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you.
enjoying listening to you. Like, I think it's great. Continue, please.
Okay, yeah, so I joined the server like not that long ago, and yeah, news flash for people who weren't here when I joined the server. I used to get like really agitated at the Globers. Like I kind of do now sometimes, but I used to get like way more agitated with them because I was shocked. Like when the teenagers would first come in and like be like they're not getting paid. They're just like children, 14, 15 coming in and just like defending their oppressors left and right, and getting angry if you even even tried to just hint that NASA might be lying. That just like blew my mind. I was like not very happy about it. So anyway, and then my son I can't remember what, he heard something on the radio that NASA was, going to Mars, and one of their lies. I said, oh, Zach, this guy's, this is not accurate. This is a complete lie. NASA's definitely not doing that. There's zero objective evidence that they're doing this. And then he said to me, "Oh, I know, Mom. I hear you yelling at people in the basement about it." And I just thought it was so funny because I had no idea that he was even listening to anything that I said, and apparently he's listening to every word. So anyway.
I remember hearing you talk about them before. That is awesome.
Yeah. So now we are on, that was 0 to 7. Now we're on beginning formal training generally after age 7. Informal training never stops. Number 1, continue encouraging natural observation. Continue encouraging questioning and keep asking questions. Look into their eyes when they're answering. So that's again about keeping them grounded in reality, not getting like off into crazy fantasy land of the internet and the television, which they're going to start hearing more and more. Encourage them to choose a higher level instrument to learn. So yeah, the Waldorf at the young age starts with that pentatonic scale and kind of those easier instruments, but then, at this time they could start learning the violin or the trumpet or whatever, piano's always good. I think everybody should learn the piano because that one's right and left hand together. You have to learn to do both. Even if you choose another instrument, it's always good to have a bass.
You didn't actually drop off that fast, did you? Hold on a second. I'm
Oh,
still
I
here.
thought that was me. Okay.
I thought it was me.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh dang. She may have lost.
Did she just
Like
stop
everyone
talking?
thought it was
Did she just stop talking, or it literally dropped out that fast? I'm like, wow. What happened? But I really enjoy listening to Dandelion. Oh my gosh. It's fantastic. Man. That level of discussion is fascinating. Yeah.
Well, until she comes back, I have an example of how knowing logic can help children, if you guys want to hear that.
Sure. Let's.
Yeah, by all means, go ahead.
Okay, for example, I'm going to give you an example of how bad logic hurt a kid. A girl who had horrible anger issues. Turns out the reason why she had anger issues was because somebody had told her you couldn't control your anger. That's why it did. It's okay, you just couldn't control your anger. So her logic for herself was, I cannot control my emotions control me. And when she started getting help with this, someone taught her that these are your emotions. If you're not controlling them, then who is? You're the one who controls your emotions. They don't control you. And as soon as she changed this and she started using good logic for herself, she stopped having these anger issues and her social skills also improved. Because when you have bad logic and you make logical leaps, you can get easily upset, especially as a child. They'll be like, he meant to do that because of this, and and they'll explode and get angry. And they push their friends away and they isolate themselves. And the same thing can apply to good logic, where you can see where when there is a disagreement within the child group, when a child has been brought up with good logic, they can actually resolve the dispute between the kids by just presenting it logically and calmly, and the other kids will be like, okay, it makes sense. They'll actually calm down, and it works even with 6-year-olds. But yeah, I think Dandelion's back, so I'm going to pass it back to her.
I'm so glad you took over. I don't even know when I cut off here. Like I told Redford Beer and Brad earlier, I even drove to the city and I'm sitting in the parking lot right next to Cell Tower just for you people, but I still can't stay connected. But nonetheless, thank you for taking over.
I'm just glad to have you back.
Yeah. But so I started off with the 7 after age 7. I don't know where I left off, but anyway, I was going to talk about the Fallacy Detective book, so I'll just go ahead with that. So yeah, another story about the same son that was secretly listening to me talking to Globers in the server. So when I first started using this book in my homeschool, because I think the ages, it's somewhere on the page, it gives the ages, and like the official ages were only for my 3 older children. So I was only like officially teaching them, but then the 2 younger ones were like sitting there the whole time, and it's very goes into naming something. They have naming each fallacy. I'm trying to give you an example here from the website, and they usually have like little cartoons, like it appeals to children and so on. And so anyway, and my children just really liked this book. Like every time they would like ask to do it, and it's something that we would do, as a group and so on. So anyway, I was going through and teaching each chapter and fallacy with the 3 older, but then the other one was sitting there just doing his own work because I thought he was too young. I think he was only like 7 or 8 at that time. But then he started like identifying them, and sometimes he was identifying them better than the older boys were. So I realized, we gotta get him in here too. And so then he started doing it. So no matter what it is, the age they say in there, you can do it younger. So same thing, like I said, about just these, the stages in general are just general. It's not like you have to sit there and like wait for their birthday. And Karma says they learn fast when it's like a game, right? They're competing, and he was like showing up his 3 older brothers by getting the answer before them. Absolutely. So yeah, if you get any kind of competition in there, then that's very good. So anyway, I find that to be a really good book to use for older children. I went through the 5 points of the informal training, never the stuff, but I'm not going to repeat those again. Okay, here's the C. This is one I really wanted to mention. And I've heard Mimas, our admin, talk about this with his children before because, people will ask, how do you deal with this kind of thing with children? So I'll just read the paragraph I wrote before, how to deal with the influence of the mass formation psychosis. At this point, young people will likely be hearing false information out in the world about the globe, evolution, and other pseudoscientific ideas. You can begin to explain to them that it is possible to explore these ideas and learn these fantasy models while also recognizing that they have no basis in reality. You can also tell them that if they discuss these ideas with other people, expect an emotional response for the very reasons explained above. These ideas were implanted in them as children before their reasoning stage was able to properly incorporate them as abstractions. Use your intuition when determining what is appropriate to discuss here, depending on your relationship with the child and their life situation. So yeah, basically what they've done there, by implanting, let's just talk about the globe in particular, because there's many other pseudoscientific ideas out there, of course. The globe in particular, by implanting that as a solid object, the globe in the classroom, the globe on every cartoon, the globe on the Weekly World News or whatever, the globe. They're like implanting that as a solid object, as if it's real at that concrete stage when the child is, learning from actually exploring their environment. So even though they've never experienced a globe, never experienced rotation and so on, we get them in here as adults, and they are like not capable of even thinking that it's possible that the globe doesn't really exist, even though they've never actually seen it, right? They've only seen images of it. Even when you point out, NASA explaining how
Did she drop out again?
Oh my gosh, did I drop out?
Oh, you're back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Still here.
Good. Oh yeah. So speaking of that, Detective One Shot, he did send me a message DM there, even though we're in the middle of presentation. Detective One Shot, I did want to say, and since it applies to what we're talking about right now, his question is, can we go to space and see if it's flat? So the answer to that, Detective One Shot, and hopefully you'll stick around for after the presentation because I see you don't have any roles. Or if you want to jump up to the VC check-in and get a role so you can talk to us later, that'd be cool. But yeah, we can't go up to the fantasy medium of outer space as it is portrayed because Drace did point this out earlier in his presentation of why the entire, concept of having gas pressure without a container is fallacious reasoning. But yeah, it's impossible for that medium to exist. We can't have a vacuum uncontained next to the atmosphere of outer space. And on NASA.gov website, they come right out and tell you that they've created the globe image for you on a computer on the ground. There's no images from space, Detective One Shot. And Mr. Robert Simon will tell you that right on his own NASA.gov website. All right.
What's wrong with just going outside to see if it's flat? Why do you have to go to a special place?
Great question, Indio.
Did I come in clear?
Oh, I heard you.
Like, why do we have to go to a special place? It's silly.
NASA does claim that one photo is real.
Yeah, Apollo 17. We could go into why that's all the inconsistencies of that if we want to later.
Yeah, just to clarify, they do claim one as an actual legit image. Anyway, but we know that's bullshit too.
Yeah, memes Apollo 17, that pretty much explains one argument, but there's probably like 75 more, along with, it being completely impossible to start with.
Looks like a painting to me.
This particular image is obviously a drawing from the book The Greatest Lie on Earth, Proof That Earth is Not a Spinning Globe by Edward Hendry. It is a diagram showing you why the Apollo 17 image is impossible to have been taken at the time and in the way that they claimed. There's an entire chapter on it if anyone's interested. The book is free on the internet. Okay, so here's the next book I recommend, Harry Stoutemeyer's Discovery, Philosophy for Children, number 5. That's just another resource if you have children, or you can, if you don't have children yet, you can always bookmark it and save it onto a playlist for when you have children. Never too late to start. I think I was pregnant with my first child when I started researching whether I was going to homeschool. They had charter schools in Michigan. I started meeting with this group that wanted to open a charter school. Never too early, never too early. Anyway, Karma, did you have anything to say about the age 7 and up stage?
Well, I did have one comment on the mass psychosis and the globe inundated everywhere, I've seen a presentation on how that just your general attitude, body language and things and opinions of the parents can affect the children subconsciously. Mm-hmm. And I've seen examples of that in real life. For instance, a child came to me and showed me a drawing he made that was Donald Trump. Instead of Trump, it's the word for fart in Icelandic. And I'm like, why is he Donald Fart? And he's like, because he sucks. He's a bad man. And I'm like, why is he bad? And he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, why do you think he's bad? And he's like, my dad doesn't like him. And he's like, has he said something about him? And he's like, it's mostly just even if your body language and the way if you treat the globe like it's a bit of a joke or it's funny, or if you treat it like it's just a religion that some people believe in, just like with the kids that are smart and figure out, okay, Santa Claus obviously isn't real or whatever, then you tell those kids off and like, let's not ruin it for the other kids because they want to believe in it and they're having fun with their little fantasy. They want to believe in this stuff. And I remember being told that as a kid and being like, okay, I'm not going to ruin it for the other kids though. And you can do kind of the same with like, it's people just believe in this, kind of like some people believe in this religion or that religion, and approach it that way. I don't know. I just want to comment on that.
That is an excellent point, Karma. Yeah, you absolutely, it does not have to be a crisis for the child. It doesn't have to be like, and you now must go, and you must each day wear a shirt that's to school that says the earth is flat. You must fight with everyone all day long. No, that's not what it needs to be at all. And it isn't that way. I mean, I've experienced the same thing. Like my youngest one, I was wondering, like, has he ever, because I'd never presented the globe to him as, as reality, whereas these other ones, some of them were at a school, earlier where they got that presented to them and so on, my older ones. But my youngest one, I'm like, I wonder what he thinks about that. And then one day I was actually making, I was either working on the Flat Earth Wiki or a video or something. I think I was working on a video. And my youngest one came up and pointed at the globe image. She's like, what's that? I think he was 5 or 6. And I was kind of happy that he said, what's that? Like he's never seen one before. I'm like, I guess I've done my job well. And so the first time he saw it was, me making a Flat Earth video. But anyway, I just said like a simple thing, like, that's just, it's a, people say this is where we live. That's an image of the globe where people say we live. But actually, we don't. They just made that up, And he's just like, okay. And then he just went on playing, They're not like, they don't need to have an existential crisis about it because they don't really care. Like you said, if your emotion level is not high about it, like they don't really care like that much about it. It's these adult children, little hissy fit tantrum throwers here that have staked their whole life on the globe apparently, and spent all that time memorizing the Klingon dictionary that are worried about it. I love this one that Drace put up here. I don't think I've heard of that one before, and it goes along with our friend Sisyphus rolling my boulders, Sisyphean fallacy, where a proponent of a position says someone can refute or confirm a position if they are able to complete an impossible task. That is good. That's based on the question that our friend asked about if we can go up into space. Grace?
Yeah. When they say they can prove the globe by either you or them going up into space and looking at it as a globe, they're using the Sisyphean fallacy.
I love that. That is wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, and then I found a link to Hendry's book. So if anyone's interested in seeing, all the inconsistencies, even in the images that they claim to be true, beyond the ones that Robert Simon admits are CGI, you can read that entire book. And it has a lot of other good stuff in it, too. Okay. Oh, there's a few sources I wanted to give for like high school or college level, like an advanced high school student could do these, especially if you've been like training them up the whole time. This first one is from Carnegie Mellon University. It's a free logic course. This next one's the Lumen Learning course that Drace found, which I haven't actually looked at that a ton, but I know Drace uses it, so it must be good. And this other one's a book that my high school sons use, and I have some lesson plans based on this book if anybody's interested in it. Static Logic. So anyway, those are those 3 resources, and that's pretty much all I had to say, unless anybody, I don't know, Karma, if you have anything else to say, or if anybody has any questions.
I think that's good, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I just wanted to emphasize again, just ending the way I started was it's never too late, to retrain your brain. Like, actually, I mean, even this logical fallacy book, like, I go through that with my children, and, I learn stuff from it, because even stuff written at a child's level, you can learn things by teaching it to other people, obviously. And then, you can, it's not too late for any of us. So I just wanted to, even though this is focused on, like, how to reach children, it can apply to all of us. And Drace says the same thing. Yep, every time you go over it, you learn more. Absolutely.
And even if you don't have kids, it's good resources, because sometimes you really do have to explain it at a child's level, whether it's a language barrier or an intellectual problem. But it can be helpful with globers as well.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for me or Karma?
Well, like one of the things about you're talking about the adult kids, it takes more patience, because when they're children, you still have to have patience, but when these adults, they have more tantrum, you have to have that patience to sink that information in.
I think that's a great point to make. Yeah, it takes more patience, especially dealing with adults in the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord server, than it does myself dealing with 6 children, or when I used to teach in the public schools, dealing with 30 children. Even substituting 30 children in like one of the worst schools I've ever taught in was easier than dealing with adults, even one of these fantasy globe believers in the half the time the 24/7 Flat Earth Discord server 2.0. They're just so stubborn and recalcitrant. They refuse to think logically. They refuse to put aside the premise of the globe. It is because of what we just said. They're stunted at the time of their development when they should have been learning about the real world. And some, I mean, I'm not saying like, it's not like education. They just like prop up their eyeballs with toothpicks like in Clockwork Orange and force them to look at globe pictures all day long. I mean, some, there's experiences, obviously, you have in just even your typical school where you're dealing with reality. Certain subjects lend themselves to it more than others, like certain aspects of biology and chemistry and so on. But it's just overtaken. I really do think it's partly this generation where the internet and the television have just overtaken their brains to the point where it's like you're literally, reaching through the matrix, talking to someone that's plugged into a completely different reality and, trying to actually, deprogram them to convince them to go back to the reality where they actually live and are breathing, walking around and eating, but their brains are somewhere else, disconnected, and that takes even more patience. And the thing I've learned here on the Discord is it also takes sometimes recognizing, this person And I never want to say they're hopeless. Actually, I do sometimes say that and then I feel bad afterwards. But at this stage in their development, some people are just not ready. And maybe it's because of that, some people don't want to revisit their childhood, right? And so if that globe was implanted there in childhood, some people are like, nope, not going back there. So there's a lot of psychological things going on there that we have to deal with that you don't have to deal with if you're talking to a child who hasn't been as badly indoctrinated or contaminated with this stuff, for sure. I agree, Karma. Yep. Karma says she has endless patience for children, but when a grown-up is being a deceptive sophist, even I don't want to deal with them sometimes, absolutely. Because they won't listen to you, so what's the point of spending the time with them when, they don't even want, they don't even
Yeah, the kids at least listen. They have the sense to listen. Or if not, it's easy to get their attention.
Dandelion, can I just say something that I've said to other people in the survey before? And that's these children are taught things at the age of roughly 5 years old. And it's kind of a 1 or 2 year period in which they get taught this information about the globe. But then it's not challenged at 10. It's not challenged at 15. It's probably not even challenged at 20. So you're looking at maybe 25 before they start reflecting on whether or not the globe is real. So you've got 20 years of indoctrination there to deal with, essentially. And that's a long time.
Yeah,
I
for
don't think
sure.
it's until you're out of school or out of college or out of university or out of study that you can actually reflect back as an adult and re-examine your life and as someone who's more mature.
Yeah, that's why I think, I don't know what the answer is, because it's not like people are coming to this gaming server and saying, yes, can you please go back and retrain my brain and re-educate me? No, they're not. So, we just can do what we can and present the information, and some people are ready to hear it, some people aren't, but, we can give them different resources and hope that maybe, even if they're not going to thoroughly get it, completely understand this globe model has zero basis in objective reality and is not scientific, or mathematical in any way, even if they just start to even question that, or question the moon landings, or question just, stories that they're told, I mean, at least that's a start. So we aren't necessarily going to bring everyone to completion, that's here. Helio also suggested this logic lessons with Mr. Spock, which I haven't actually watched, but I know other people have recommended this in the server, so I just thought I'd put that up there. Apparently it's good. I haven't actually watched it. Okay, so are we ready for India, or what are we doing?
Does anybody, I guess nobody has any other questions. Thank you for presenting. That was very informative. I enjoyed listening to that.
Bravo.
Thanks for having us.
It was almost like a 2-for-1 special. It was like a presentation on logical fallacies, and then we got like a grinds my gears type of rant. I love those rants. So yeah, it was like a 2-for-1. I appreciate that.
Did I rant? I don't even remember ranting. It just comes naturally. I probably did.
It was a 3-for-1 with ladies' night included.
There you go. Do you want me to start ranting about ladies' night? Yeah, if India's not here, I could rant about something else for a while.
Let's see if India's around.
I'm here. Give me a second. Give me 2 minutes.
Okay, no problem. But yeah, I wasn't sure how you were going to tile that in, Dandelion. And then when I saw the what was that, a PDF or that wiki link thing that you had sent in the chat, and when I read it, I was like, oh, this is going to be so good. So that was very enjoyable to listen to. But yeah, if you want to add anything else till India's ready.
Oh, I do have a question for Dandelion.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering what you would say to teachers or educators regarding flat Earth and looking into it. Because I'm sure we have those people listening as well.
Yeah, see, now that is a very good question, Cyberblitz. Thank you for asking that. Because when I first realized, and I will go into this story in detail on my podcast with Crypto and Crowd. I can't even remember the name of that podcast anymore because they stopped doing it. But, it was called Why Would They Lie? I don't remember. Anyway, regardless, I explained how I got into Flat Earth. It's because I was writing a term paper to get my master's in science education to tell students why they were wrong when they said the earth was flat. If they heard that on Twitter with their favorite rapper, I was going to explain to them why they were wrong, because that was our assignment, is to explain them.
Well, sometimes.
So,
no, continue. I'm not sure who that is.
Okay. So anyway, but then when I started researching it and I realized, oh my goodness, I can't, I did write the paper and I kind of presented both sides of the issue, but I realized there is not a lot of good answers to some of these questions these flat earthers are raising. And at that time in 2016, I didn't, in no place on the internet did I find the 8 inches per mile square predicted curvature, any mathematical measurements and so on. Once I found that, later on, that it was game over for me, but it started to make me agitated. How am I ethically going to keep teaching this if I can't back this up? But then and then even after I was certain, after I saw the mathematics that prove it conclusively beyond beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this curvature is not measured or observed anywhere, I was like, oh, can I keep teaching earth science? They assigned an earth science class to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to teach this? But then I found that it's just kind of like how I explained about teaching to your own children. It's I have not even one time lied to a student about any of this. And it's not an issue. And it's basically the things actually, to the contrary, I found I've gotten way better at my job because I am hammering home the scientific method, hammering home examining sources, hammering home, you might find that on the internet here, but look over here where it completely contradicts what it says there. So what do you think the real story is? I mean, it's made me a way better teacher without one time ever using the phrase flat earth. So my advice would be, if you start to realize it, don't get anxious about it or think you have to quit your job because you probably have to feed your family and all that. And that goes for anyone who has a job that's, where you think it's going to be a problem. You don't have to go to work and, start, like I said about the children, you have to go wear a flat earth t-shirt to work. That's, some people do that, and people have different paths. But to me, it's way more important to just to get people grounded, thinking logically, thinking in reality, than to get involved in phrases and ideas that are controversial, that are going to make people emotionally triggered, to where you're not actually going to make any progress with them and so on. So I don't know if that was your question, was what should they do? I mean, I would say just, keep doing what you're doing, but become the best you could possibly be at it, so that, there's no room for anyone to be questioning you, basically. I mean, isn't that what we do here?
Yeah, and just to touch on that, I think what Dandelion said is really key. Especially when you're still in the learning, or you think you're in a research phase and you're still gathering information.
Right, because not everyone is ready to tackle this topic in public, as we've seen, and that's why this place is a great training ground. And then you'll find, that you can't, in India, whenever you're ready, you can cut in. We're just killing time till you're ready. But you can find that, you can introduce, is he roboting?
Yeah, was that India?
Okay.
Am I?
I think you were, I don't know, maybe try disconnecting and
Oh yeah, he's roboting.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, what I found is you introduce, and I know a lot of people do this, you see what level of truth the person you're talking to is ready for. So you don't have to go right to the juggler, right, with flat earth. I mean, you can if you want to, if you're with it, and you are into that kind of thing. But like I did with my homeschool group, I've told this story before, I'll just tell it briefly, they were going to make outer space the science topic for the entire year. Our homeschool co-op, where, you can go once a week, and cooperative, each parent teaches a different class and so on. So I wrote them a 2-page essay using my credentials, my degrees, and so on about how it was impossible for outer space to exist in the way claimed. It's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics. Here's this physicist, that physicist, the other physicist that questions these theories such as dark matter and so on. Never once did I mention the words flat earth anywhere in there, but I, just explained to them why they were going to be misinforming children, as well as they were supposedly Christians, so that were going to also be contradicting what they were telling their children and telling them to read the Bible and so on. And, never mentioned flat earth once, but said, if you guys choose to do this, I'll have to withdraw my children and we ethically won't be able to participate in, in spreading this misinformation about the astrophysicist fairy tale. And then I got no response, no substantive response at all. Like, I wasn't even that nervous about writing it because I'm just like, even though these are the ladies, I go to dinner with and so on. Yeah, that's better. Yeah. But like, I know if you got your facts, if you kill them with the facts, right? Like, Karma, you were talking about killing them with politeness, be polite. List the irrefutable facts, and most people are just, that's what I find in the world. I don't know what other people find. It's like they're just kind of like, they don't have an answer. We know they have no answer because they've never researched it. They don't really know what you're talking about. And so they would just avoid it. That's my experience. And then you can feel like you are moving through the world in truth and continue on with your life and don't participate in the lies if you can avoid them. Or if you have to, like I said, explain to your children that that's what we're doing to humor these people, just like Karma said about Santa Claus. You don't want to necessarily make other people's children have information that's going to get them into hot water if those children are not ready for it or if they're going to have an emotional breakdown and so on. Yeah, you're way better,
Well, I
Indio.
think it's okay. Well, I want to say something about what you said.
Oh, goody.
I personally, I have no problem with teaching somebody the globe model, as long as you emphasize that it's just a model. So there's actually historical precedent for this, because when Copernicus and Kepler came up with their heliocentric model, the Ptolemaic model was taught side by side with it for something like 200 years. They didn't just say, oh, we're just going to abandon this. They just said this model might be right, that model might be right. In fact, they would teach Tycho Brahe's model, which is where I think that one's where the moon and the sun, I think it's the sun and the moon orbit the earth, but the planets orbit the sun, something like that. So that's an even weirder one. But as long as like you tell them this isn't a physical reality, it's just a mathematical model to make predictions of this, that, or the other thing, and it doesn't mean anything real. We have lots of models that do that. So I don't know why people are surprised when we, like, globe earthers come in here and they're like somehow surprised when we tell them it's just a model and it's not reality, and we do this all the time. Like, they seem stunned. Like, no, this is like well known. Things aren't really in two places at once. They have no problem. Quantum physics does it, but like when it comes to the shape of the earth, all of a sudden, no, it really is. No, it's really a globe. Go to space. You'll see. Anyway, that's what I want to say about that.
Yes, I like that. Thank you. I appreciate that, definitely. You don't need to be afraid of models. We can examine them and then discard them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even even if it works in one particular circumstance, just use it for that particular circumstance. Usually you're doing it for some utility. Like, do what works. There's nothing wrong with that. That otherwise you're just as religious as they are, right? You're just like, well, because you guys are saying this is the reality, I refuse to use this globe model, even though it works in this situation. That's just being religious too. And so, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Anyway, whatever. So should I go?
Yeah, man, you might as well shouldn't even pause. Keep going, man.
Yeah, so this is a short and sweet. I got this idea kind of, well, I'll go back. So Matthew Learns was in our live stream, right? And he was talking about a mathematical proof, and there was some over it.
Did he cut out
Anyway,
for anybody?
Yeah, I cut out for a second. Sorry. So there was an argument about it, and what Matthew Lawrence said that you can prove that there's an infinite number of primes using a proof by contradiction. Now, this kind of like bothered me because, I'm not too hip on infinity, and I realized that this is all actually, and he even cited, like, this goes back to like Euclid. Euclid was the first person to ever use what's called the proof by contradiction. But, so the proof is this, that if you have a finite set of primes, whatever that is, right? Say the first 10,000 prime numbers, if you multiply them all together and add 1, that will also be a prime number. But that prime number won't be in that finite set that you started with. That means that for any finite set you have of prime numbers, there'll always be a prime number that's not in that set that you can create with that set. So this is a proof by contradiction because there's always there's no definite finite set, then there must be an infinite set. This is actually wrong because, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to say why. Because two logical fallacies. The number one logical fallacy is it's a false dichotomy. Even though we use the word infinite and finite as if they are opposite things, they actually are not. And the reason they are not is because, what's the word for it? Is because it's a false equivalence, right? They're actually not equivalent things. A finite thing is an object, where infinity is an operation or an action, right? One is a noun, the other is a verb. So notice in this proof by contradiction, right? You have to do an operation. You have to multiply primes and then add 1. That's actually doing something. Now you can do that action forever, but that doesn't mean like the result of that action is infinite too, right? So it's also a non sequitur fallacy on top of it. But the point of all this is, we have a lot of traditions where people say things are proven, right? And they'll use, I would call this a false proof. And I would say, don't have any sacred cows. Don't, just because someone said, yes, this was proven by so-and-so 10,000 years ago, and it sounds good on the surface, don't be afraid to examine it and poke at it to see if actually it might contain some sort of logical fallacy. So, sure, Matthew Lawrence is probably like spinning right now, spiraling, that I actually said a mathematical proof was not a mathematical proof, but he'll get over it. Anyway, that was pretty much it. But this also does go to something with flat Earth when they say things like, where's the edge, right? Well, if I walk in a straight line forever, there's got to be an edge, right? This assumes that, but this is the same false dichotomy, finite versus infinite. And there's something called Zeno's paradoxes, and he proved 2,000 years ago that you can't prove with logic whether we are in an unbounded or bounded universe, because you can do this mathematical operation where, right, and I'll give you the example he used, it's Achilles and the tortoise. Well, that was one. I'll give you a more modern type example. Say you have a wall, right, that's 10 feet away. Now, I can walk 5 feet, cut half the distance, and approach the wall. And mathematically, I can keep doing this, right? And then I can go half that distance, and half that distance, and half that distance, and half that distance. And I'm approaching this wall. Mathematically, even though I'm getting closer, I'm actually never going to reach the wall. But we know from experience that we actually can walk 10 feet and touch a wall, right? We can prove that there is a boundary by going to touch it. But mathematically and logically, we can't prove it. So when they say things like there's an edge, there must be an edge, especially when they say there must be an edge, I just ask them to prove it. And their response is, well, what else would it be? Which is not actually a response, right? It's like, this is the only thing I can think of. This is what I grew up with, so it must be this. So like I said, the point of this is don't assume that there's any sacred cows just because we grew up with these like in our childhood and they've been told to us by our teachers that X, Y, and Z has been proven. They relied on this proof 1,000 years ago. That's not necessarily true. Re-examine what you've been told, and you will all be better off for it. That's it, Finny.
I got a question for you, Indio. Since you got a pretty short presentation, I wanna bounce a question off of you.
All right.
What do you think the number one fallacy that a flat earther commits? That we don't call each other out on.
Let me think about that for a second.
All right, go ahead. While he's thinking about that, does anybody have any questions, concerns, comments, or anything?
I would like to answer that question real quick, and I would say the fallacy, because I mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but there's a lot of flat earthers that in the heat of the moment do make non sequitur statements.
Yeah.
And like you said in your presentation, non sequiturs are very common. They're not like some weird thing. They're very common that people just jump to. It's really non sequiturs are jumping to conclusions without evidence and without a logical step in the middle. And everyone does this. I'm sure I do it. So I'd say probably that is the most prevalent. But the fallacy, that's probably a cancer too. Thinking just because somebody can't prove something that it's disproven. That's not how it works. It just means they can't prove it. Disproving something is actually pretty tricky.
Yeah.
Like the primes, like that's a good example of they tried to disprove that there's a finite number of primes, right? Or disprove that there's an infinite number of primes, and in order to do that, they do these, weird contortions, and what they end up skipping over, they have to make an assumption, a non sequitur in there, that finite and infinite are opposite things when they're actually not. I can actually take a finite thing and have it, but there's no infinite thing I can possess, and I can only talk about it by doing an operation that I can actually never complete. Basically, it's imagination versus reality, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I have another one that we are sometimes guilty of, and that's the red herring, because we allow them to drag us into the weeds, or we drag them off into the weeds ourselves instead of letting them concede the point.
Yeah, I agree. That's something we can all work on more. Is making them especially when they jump from one topic to another, making them concede one point before they move on, because that's what they do when they get uncomfortable, is jump on to another one.
Can I input here?
Go ahead, man.
Yeah.
Awesome show. I had some audio issues, so I've been listening the entire time because this is an amazing presentation that everyone's given. Drace, that was awesome. Karma and Mary Mom. I hear Redford over there too. And is Norman hosting it? Is it Norman? Is that his name? And then
Norman? No, man, this is Brad.
That should be your next name. I like Norman for you, Ghost. I think that'd be good for your next name.
Well, my bad. Everybody involved. This is awesome. This really makes my day. I would say that flat earthers affirm the consequent and in an attempt to answer a question after the burden of proof has been reversed. So they'll try to come up with a reason as to why something happens in the sky, and sometimes it falls into an affirming the consequent fallacy.
Okay, Elijah, I got a question for you, man. I tried to when we were planning the show and we were coming up with the presenters, I tried to get a hold of you, but I couldn't. So I'm actually glad I got your attention for a second. I have a question for you. So, I had it on the tip of my tongue, and now I don't. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, man. It's gonna come to me. Somebody start playing elevator music for me.
No problem. I'm here. Whenever it comes back to you, I'll be on the side.
Yeah, somebody else take over for a second. I'm gonna try to think of this. I had it, and then it just went away.
Yeah, I was just going to say in regards to what India said earlier about, not, about recognizing the premises that we are accepting as true or that someone verified them at some point. I think, there's this other extreme where people come in here often when they're the straw man fallacy, I guess. I mean, what was the question? Is it what's the most common or favorite? I can't remember, but straw man is like, don't we used to have straw men in here all day long? It's like, and one of the straw man fallacies that they come in here is like, oh, so you guys don't believe anything unless you've seen it yourself, or you guys throw out everything. Nothing is true. Nothing is real. And that's just so far from the truth, because I feel like what we're doing is the opposite. We are starting from scratch, but we are building up, kind of a body of knowledge here with the info channels we have down here, with the work we do here every day, with the YouTube streams, with this Flat Earth Wiki we're working on, where, no, we're coming up with some information here that, is highly verifiable. Like, you could run out to California and go look at those oil rigs if you want, if you care enough. You can come over and look at the Chicago skyline. You can do all these things. Here's a body of knowledge that we are compiling here that you can verify, that is verifiable. Whether you choose to have the energy to actually go do it or not is up to you. But that is probably my least favorite straw man fallacy is that coming in here and saying that nothing can be known, then you guys are throwing out everything, which is not true at all. What was the question Ghost asked that we're answering?
No, earlier I asked.
Earthers use most.
Yeah,
what?
He asked, you're answering the question before that. Last question was, what fallacy do you think flat earthers use most? But you made me think of missing the point, because that's a really, really common fallacy, or not conceding your error and not addressing the argument being made, but rather, like you said, with a straw man or something else, go off into something else. If you want to answer the question, that's cool.
Elijah, man, I got you. So, okay. So based off of the fallacies that you know of and that, you can basically retain, what's the hardest logical fallacy for you to hear, like, in real time? Elijah, go ahead.
I'm sure it happens all the time, because I'll hear something that sounds off or not logically consistent, but I won't have the proper term for it. I just can't think of it off the top of my head.
I know how you feel, man.
A trick for me when that happens is finding an example that works, that uses the same logic, that's really absurd. That can often, and like, you just condense it a little bit, and then that often helps you identify it.
I think I might have one, because I was just questioning what fallacy it was, and I think I've identified it. So this guy, well, people will go, "You're welcome." People will go, so this black swan, how was this scientifically proven or scientifically validated? I don't know how to answer it, because the first thing, the first feeling you have is to tell them, well, it's not a scientific experiment that I'm doing, but they'll insist that that you can't scientifically validate something that was never supposed to be scientifically, that was never put forth as a scientific inquiry. So I think that would be a category error on their part, you know. And a category error is pretty much when something is said that's odd, that doesn't necessarily go together, necessarily make sense. Like, let's hold on. Let's go to good old Google. One second, I'm in the elevator too. So.
So yeah, before he comes back, I don't know if all you saw there that CJ made a logical fallacies category while we were all speaking here, because somebody asked about that at the beginning, so now we have one. Thanks, CJ.
Nice.
Good job.
We could put, some of the stuff we've shared today, we could put in there. We could
Sorry.
add more stuff. Maybe this presentation, if Helio or Roger have it, we could put that in there. I don't know. Are you guys going to make this as a separate thing? Redford Baron?
Yeah, that's why we have the recording bot, Craig. We're going to try and do that. I think Indio should get the file, and then I'm not really sure what happens after that. I'll have to touch base with him and maybe create somewhere where we can post these. Or I can even just get it and start like a YouTube or something and just upload them. Whatever is the easiest.
Was Elijah still answering? Because I thought he said he was in an elevator. I didn't know if he was out of the elevator.
Maybe not yet.
Now
We're
you
running
can
in.
play the elevator music.
Oh yeah, where's Krishna?
Has anybody already posted videos for children to learn logic and critical thinking? Because I'd like to find some to play for my son, who's 9 years old.
Yeah, she
And my
posted a
daughter.
lot of. She posted a lot of books and videos. I think the whole.
Are they just in chat or?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all those links that I posted and I'll put them down in the Logical Fallacy channel so they're all in one place. So you don't have to like go searching through.
That would be awesome.
Starts at from 12:36 and.
But I actually don't think... Oh, you know what? The only videos I posted were the ones that Helio suggested, the Spock series. That'd probably be good for children, but I don't actually have a lot of actual videos. But that would be a good thing to have. I don't know if that even exists for children. That's a good question. I'm mostly focused on books.
I just searched it on YouTube. I'm listening to you guys, and so I was like, let me... Because I have my kids this weekend, and so I was like... trying to get them off the video games for a little bit and watch something educational. And so there's a video right now, I haven't watched it myself yet, but it's how to teach logic in homeschool, logic and critical thinking resources for second grade. That was just like one of the first things that popped up.
Oh, well, put it up there. I'd like to watch it.
Yeah, I just typed in teaching children how to think logically into the
Same here, man.
But yeah, I can share that, sure.
Glad he asked if the Fallacy Detective book is very Christian heavy. I don't think it is. I'm trying to remember. I don't think it is. And that's the thing I also wanted to say about resources in general. Like, not obviously. I think there might even be something about globes in that book. I can't even remember, but like a lot of times I just pass over those things or examples that I don't want to use. I just don't use them. It's definitely not very Christian heavy. They might have something there, but I really don't think they do. I think it's pretty secular. Fallacy Detective book, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we should just have a resources, for homeschooling, which I don't know if we have that or not, but because because geography books are iffy, but I just got a good one for my first grader that just has flat maps, doesn't even mention, because some of them, at the beginning, especially workbooks, they'll say, we live on a globe, and then every other page is flat maps, so I just, rip out page 1, although some of you guys don't like that, I know, I guess I just rip out page 1 because, like, they've seen that. I've told them before. It's like, that's what they say, but it's not really true. So I just rip it out, and then we just start on page 2. That's pretty much almost every book, is they just, they don't actually go, as we know, they don't teach anyone the globe model. Nobody here knows the globe model because it doesn't work.
Well, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark of the show. Out of the almost 50 people that are in here, does anybody have anything that they want to say before I ask these guys to make any closing statements or anything like that?
How to get away from the straw man fallacies, like they say, because sometimes we do waste a lot of energy on the straw man they bring up, because it's all based on assumptions, logical, that they brought up.
And begging the question. We tend to beg the question with them a lot, and it's better to not do that and nip it in the bud. So yeah, straw man and begging the question, nip those right away.
Yeah, I would say that the best course of the most correct course of action when logical fallacy is committed is not to speak as if it didn't happen. Because once you go down that road, you're kind of continuing off of a faulty premise in the first place. So in any instance, it would be a waste of time to even allow it to continue. Unless you're just having fun, or unless you're trying to demonstrate to someone how deep in fallacious reasoning someone could go. When someone is trying to learn what your position is, it's fully within your right to tell them that's not my position. And if they begin to become assertive and tell you that it is your position, you can just disengage with that person. So if it's not really about a crowd, or it's not really winning a debate, respectfully, if someone's coming to you for answers about what you think, they should, if it's genuine, they'll just allow you to tell them what you think and where you've gotten the information and what examples you can give or that you've come across and things that you've done on your own to validate whatever it is that you've said. So if that's not happening, you don't have to do it.
The fallacy that usually follows begging the question or straw man, that usually comes right after that, which you don't want to fall into either, is the burden of proof reversal. So you don't want to fall into that either. So when you call them on one, and they'll be like, if they want to know what you think, and then they'll say, oh, well, how would you? So you also can't fall into that trap of reversing the burden. Because that was something when I tried to talk to my girlfriend about these topics, she would often be like, well, what's your, and you can't. She was like, you can't question it if you don't have like the answer to. She wanted the replacement or whatever, and I was trying to explain to her the burden of proof reversal, and she wasn't quite getting it. But those three are the most, I think, common. So they'll straw man or beg the question, and then right after that, they'll reverse the burden.
Yeah, with the straw man, for instance, it's just important to let them know that that's not what you're saying or how you're presenting it, and then restating your case. You can see this really well done if you look at Kathy Newman's interview with Jordan Peterson, Mr. Make Your Bet.
So what you're saying is,
yeah. So what you're saying is no, that's not what I'm saying. I said this. This is what I'm saying.
No.
Every time someone says that, it's 100% straw man coming, 100%, because they're about to rephrase your words for you.
I absolutely love that video of Jordan Peterson and that woman and how she was doing it over and over and over. So what you're saying is, and he would not allow her to do that in straw man him. No, that's a great video. I also seen a video. It was pretty cool about logical fallacies where they used Joe Rogan as an example, and then they analyzed one of his interviews and then highlighted how many times logical fallacies were used, and I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, you're jumping around topics right now.
Well, since can I say something one really quick? Just before we get too far away from it, based on what Lai just said, I just want to say that, yeah, if you ignore bad behavior, you're also encouraging it. So if you don't address the fact that they made a fallacy, you're just encouraging them to be more fallacious because they get away with it.
Are we ending the show or what?
Yeah, we're about to wrap it up, man.
I'd like to just make one little statement. Thank you, Drace, for doing this and everybody for putting this together. I'd just like to say something real quick and concisely. It doesn't matter the content of the conversation. If it is illogical, then it fails all tests.
Yeah, I think that's good. You know what? Because I was just thinking when Roger put in here, don't forget Globers like their ad homs. I think when you asked, what is the reason why this is important, it's probably something we should have started with, but let's end with it. It's because we are encouraging everyone to look at the content of the argument. And the reason why Globers tend to use this fallacious reasoning is because it's all they have. They don't have content. As we know, they have no evidence. They have no proof of curvature or rotation. They can't show us gas pressure without a container. So that's why they rely on these fallacious reasonings, because that's supposed to distract people from the point. And it works in many contexts. That's why in many contexts it does work. That's why here in this server, we try to force people to stick to the content of the argument. So like when Roger mentions the ad homs, that is, and people misunderstand that one all the time as if that's just name calling. No, that's when you claim that, they're just a bunch of flat earthers. Why should I listen to people on the internet? It's like, yeah, why should you listen to people on the internet? You shouldn't. You should look at the content of the argument, examine it on its premises, and see if it makes logical sense or not, which is everyone wants to do everything else except for that main thing.
I love that you mentioned that because I was really close to being guilty of ad homs earlier today talking to Senek, because I would end after my arguments when he ignored my arguments and my next argument would devastate his previous one. I would end my argument by insulting him. And that's not, that's just rude. That's not fallacious. I'm not substituting my argument with an insult. Which is what an ad hom is. It's a diversion from the arguments with an insult.
I think we're guilty.
Zanuck is a special because what he's done so many times to me and others is he'll reposition the conversation at every point. Like you can, make yourself clear, but he'll reposition it and he'll try to move forward 3-4 steps.
Yeah.
And it would be hard to undo that. And then when you begin to undo it and point out what he's done, he'll just say you're wrong or you don't know what you're talking about, and he'll stop you from bringing clarity to the conversation. When all he's doing is strawmanning your position, really, and then trying to work from that. Or he'll be talking about something that is correct or accurate, but it'll be a non sequitur or red herring to the actual point.
Yeah, I find that really annoying because it's not addressing what was said before. It's just proclaiming you're right by talking about something unrelated.
I mean, talking how. Sorry. Sorry, go
No, that's
ahead,
okay.
please,
Keep
Mary.
going. Oh, it's just a little thing. I was just gonna say, part 2 of this presentation could be a live demo with Zanuck, where he just speaks, and then we each just like in the voice text see how quickly we can identify all the fallacies.
I was actually wondering. I don't really know who he is. Could he come in and we could do that? Actually, that's pretty funny. I was
It
thinking.
would be fun. I mean, we could,
Yeah.
yeah. You could do it with a lot of people, right? That's what we got to start practicing on. What were you going to say, Elijah?
Just that the light rays bending, always in the context that they're talking about is really begging the question, because it's a theoretical model about how light rays bend around the globe at a specific rate. That's all it is. But in reality, nothing. We don't have a phenomena that we can identify and validate that those presuppositions. Because if you look on YouTube and you type in does light travel in a straight line? Yeah, it does. An example someone gave it was a pretty uh, it was pretty ridiculous to get the point across, but he was basically saying we know that light's not bending because I have this piece of paper in front of my face and you can't see my face because the light is not bending around this paper to meet your eye. And so the bottom line is, when something is in front of you, the light is making its way from that thing to you. That's at least how it's described. So that being said, the only way to describe light bending from a source to your eye is in the model that they've used to explain why why everything that we think we're not supposed to see on the globe can be seen on a globe. So I don't know.
All right, so we're pretty much going to end the show from there. Do you guys want a part 2 coming up in the next few weeks, next month or so?
Yeah, with more examples, like some video examples.
Yeah, we'll see what we can work out.
Yeah.
Or not video, but audio, of an interview and point out the fallacies.
Mm-hmm.
The common ones.
Yeah, we'll see what we can work out for sure.
Trace says no.
Trace wants a break. He just wants to be an audience member next time. Don't make him overachieve again. He's an overachiever.
I don't mind doing more work, but I was talking about Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob's not okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, my bad.
I thought he was answering the "Do you want a part 2" too, because it came in there right after he said that.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's involved. Red for Bear, Dandelion, Dre, Cindy-O. Appreciate you guys. Karma, thanks for making a cameo. Same to you, Elijah, for making a cameo. And thanks for everybody coming out and listening. It was a good time. Appreciate you guys.
Fallacies.
Thank you, sir.
Fallacies.
Thank you, everyone. That was very good.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentations, Drace, Dandelion Karma, and Indio for putting all the effort in. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Now we go watch Monkey.
Yeah, can you try to stop the bot? Or do we need Indio to do that now?
I don't know. He sometimes just keeps it running. Then I think he can cut it off.
Oh, okay. And then he can kind of cut it out or whatever.
I think so.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully he'll be back here.
Sounds good.
Okay, go ahead and play us out, KJ.
Fallacies.
Wonder is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they simple pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up, had to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in the field. That's for Israel. Wonder is it real? Took the way you saw the world, then distorted it. Now you think you wanna rock and twirl somewhere orbiting. Theories disproportionate, the truth distorted quick with a forceful grip. They force a misinfo that we absorbing quick. Took the people's signature to mean extorted it. They forging it if news ain't cause informants who informing them. There's a surplus, but they tell us there are shortages. Credit economy mortgages, dollar that's supported with empty fortresses. But what's important is this, we courting ships important. Yes, of course it is, but extortion is in accordance with an assortment list of foreign tricks we ignoring, which informing disinforming this. It looked like we were snoring tricked. Pedophilia and the government endorsing it. Yeah, eugenics is exactly what abortion is. You just vilify those insubordinate. Way to matrix engineer, that's unfortunate. Geopolitically, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder is it real? Rappers acting say they high, say they simple pills. Glorify suicide so they get the deals. Big pharma set it up just to flip the pills. Control the music industry until the scripts get filled. Geopolitically, yeah, we in a field. That's for Israel. Wonder is it real?
Again, thank you, Redford. Thank you, Dandelion. Thank you, Dre. Thank you, Elijah, Karma. Thanks for everybody showing up. Thanks for everybody having some awesome live stream etiquette. Much appreciated that nobody had to be muted, nobody had to be kicked. It means more than you know. I'll see you guys next time. Peace, bro.
That was an excellent outro right there with you talking over the music. That really closed out